Oh, they say you can trust us. Oh, but they use the badge for an illusion of justice. Oh, they say you can trust us. Oh, but they use the flag for an illusion of justice. It's indefensible. Oh, now what they did, convict an innocent man twice with a 16-year-old kid. Yes, we can turn away, pretending all the pieces fit. Oh, but if we turn away, we let them get away with it.
Hello there, folks. How's it going? Okay, so we're not quite through MaM yet when I'm making this here recording here. I know you're seeing it after MaM, but I'm recording it before my final segment actually airs here. Looking forward to that. You know, we've been able to raise a lot of money for Stephen Brennan. It's been really cool. So this has been a really, really worthwhile event. It's been a little grueling, a little stressful, but it's been a lot of fun. I got to talk to a lot of interesting people and interact with a lot of interesting people, and it's just been a blast so far. So today we're here to look at just the excerpt from my kickoff broadcast for MaM, and this is the excerpt of me talking with John Ferak, author of The Wrecking Crew, the book that many of us have read, the book that spurred the research community that has kind of attached itself to me to name themselves Koze's Wrecking Crew. It's a great book. It's a good book. I advise it. If you haven't read it or anything, you should. It's really good. But here I am. I got to have about a 30-minute chat with John Ferak, and we get to hear him. John Ferak is awesome. He's the guy back in 2016, back when MaM came out. He's the guy that we would wait, because he worked at the Post-Crescent. He was a reporter at the Post-Crescent there in Wisconsin, and his articles were the articles we waited for, because we knew he was actually digging in. He was actually looking at it, whereas most of the other agencies weren't. They were given credit. They were given credit to that old that phrase that gets thrown around so much now, fake news. They were kind of going in the long lines of that. So anyways, so this is going to be the clip with me and John Ferak having a chat. Hope you guys enjoy it. Here we go. Report it and that sort of stuff. So anyway, okay, we have another caller, folks. Hello.
Yes, John Ferak.
Hi, John. How you doing? Hello, folks. We have John Ferak calling in tonight to talk with us a little bit. It's great for you to have you here. How are you doing?
Real good. Glad to be on, and want to thank everybody for tuning in tonight as well. Then.
Yes, absolutely. There's 225 people watching at the moment, so that's pretty nice. So thank you for being here. Obviously, for those of you who may not know, John Ferak is number one. He wrote a book regarding the current situation in the Avery case. Well, current as of October of 2018, I would say maybe. And he wrote The Wrecking Crew. And those of you who've been following my channel since I was going live on October 18th know that the community of supporters and researchers that have kind of developed a community because of my lives and my YouTube channel, have called themselves the Wrecking Crew. I don't know if you knew about that, but it's a term of endearment, really.
No, thanks a lot.
Yeah, it's absolutely a term of endearment. So they loved your book so much that they changed the name of the community to Koze's Wrecking Crew. So so we all love you. So those of you who don't know, John is a reporter. He used to work for the Post Crescent there in Wisconsin for a long time, and he was the guy that we all waited for to write articles, because this guy wouldn't sugarcoat it, or he would actually tell us what was going on, and we knew that because we were actually reading the documents, and so we always appreciated John. And when he wrote the Wrecking Crew, it was awesome. And but he's also written other books. I wanted to point out that he's also an author, and he has interest in other cases as well. But we have some questions tonight that I asked the Wrecking Crew for, and they mainly pertain to Avery and that sort of stuff. So but thank you for being here, obviously.
Oh, you're welcome. I'm glad to do my best to be informative with so many great people tuning in tonight.
Yes, absolutely. So one of the things that one person asked was, while you were writing Wrecking Crew, did you experience any resistance or pushback there from, I don't know, the entities there in Wisconsin that are in question, I guess?
Well, it's kind of interesting, I mean, it's a little different, when you're kind of in the trenches, on the ground, boots on the ground as a journalist, but then you're in the same state, and then in a way as well, if you really think about it, journalism is very competitive.
Yeah.
And everybody reads each other's stuff, and everybody watches each other's stuff, and everybody listens to each other's stuff. And as much as police departments oftentimes talk about, that they're really proud, of cooperation and working with other agencies, and I do think that that's true a lot of times. But if you really think about it, journalists are very independent, and they're very, they have a lot of pride, and they're very competitive to begin with. We don't have that much. Our profession is not built on patting each other on the back for teamwork. It's not supposed to be that way. It's very competitive, and I think because it's competitive, I think that oftentimes it should usually bear out the best of the best. But as you and a lot of your viewers and listeners will also know, if anybody that's studied Making Murder, and the Stephen Avery case and the Brendan Dassey case, there's a lot of groupthink, with the coverage. And normal times, the thing I like about being a journalist is that I might, have a scoop, a big story today, and then 3 days from now, one of my competitors will, and I'll see my competitor's story, and I'll say, hey, that was a great angle, maybe I should try to follow that up. But what's interesting, if you think about it, from Wisconsin's standpoint, is that a lot of the journalists that were covering the case, especially the TV people, and those people do have a lot of influence. There's a lot of people, in Wisconsin that watch the boob tube, so to speak, and that's where they get their news, from, and that's where they make up their opinions. I mean, if that wasn't true, then why did Ken Kratz hold that press conference, in the Stephen Avery case before Steve and Brendan were anywhere near going to trial?
Particularly back at that point in time, right?
Yeah, live press conferences. Yeah, so because if it was the other way around, all he would do is just, write up a bunch of transcripts, and hand those out to the newspaper reporters and the radio people, and then they would write it up. But it didn't have the impact.
Wouldn't have the same,
the dramatic effect. Yeah.
Right. Absolutely.
Right. So getting back to your question, I was kind of surprised as a reporter in Wisconsin just how few people, were really, synthesizing and kind of digesting, after the original Making Murder came out, and stepping back and saying, hey, wait a minute, this case, there's a lot of holes in it. There's a lot of questions in it.
Like a piece of Swiss cheese.
Right. So as there were a few of those first, but I realized, and we did it at the Post Crescent at the point in time. That there was a big audience. So many people, like you guys, and more and more and more, millions of people, that really wanted to know what really happened, and they didn't want lip service. And what I really found out was that I started to dig into the case, that there was just a lot of journalists, in Wisconsin that were just a disgrace to the profession. That were just and they were running these. BS, bullcrap stories as far as, things about, the sheriff's office getting, threats. I mean, that was all bullcrap, and I wouldn't be surprised if those guys were phoning it in themselves.
Right.
I mean, there was no legitimate. I get crap like that all the time. People threaten me all the time. I mean, it just comes with the job.
Right.
If I see somebody driving in front of my house, that's another thing. But there was nothing for anybody at the Manitowoc County Sheriff's Office to take seriously. And what I could tell was that those stories were manufactured news just to try to build up sympathy, from the local voters, from the constituents, and really. If you think about it, those were diversionary tactics because those had nothing to do with the real facts of the case.
Yeah.
It had nothing to do with fabricating evidence, planting evidence, not giving Brendan and Steve a fair trial, stacking the deck against them. So when you get TV stations that are running these fake news stories, about the Manitowoc County Sheriff's Office, being threatened.
Right.
That just kind of shows you that they were kind of in it, they didn't really want to take the case seriously, whereas my attitude was, I'm going to dig into the case, I'm going to do the best I can, and I'm going to let my reporting take me wherever it goes. If it shows me that making a murder was, a farce and that there was, parts of the case that weren't really told, then that's what my reporting would have showed. But my reporting basically validated, everything that people saw in Making a Murder. And actually, as I've been able to expand into the book, and as Kathleen Zoder's been able to dig into the case as well, we now know that there's way much more as far as corruption, and just other transgressions that have been going on at the Manitowoc County Sheriff's Office, for a number of years. And it really boils down to the question of, were these guys even smart enough to solve a murder case? And that's a question that people like you and everybody else has to ask themselves. Are people, do you really believe that people like Jim Link and Andy Colburn, and Dave Remiker are really smart enough to solve a complicated murder case?
Right.
And because in this case, as the evidence came together for them, in a stroke of luck, in a 7 or 8 day period, which was the greatest thing in the world for a guy named Thon who was sweating bullets, waiting to be deposed in Steve Avery's, $36 million lawsuit. The clock was ticking. I think November 9th or November 10th, was his D-date as far as having to answer all his questions.
I've often thought that may have been the real thing that was trying to be avoided, more so than the $36 million, even. Possibly.
I think that there's a good chance that that's true. One of the things that I've learned, especially digging into a case like this, and hopefully a lot of your audience knows this too. Sometimes you got to pay really close attention, to the people that are silent, in a conspiracy.
Yeah.
Pay attention to who's not showing up in court, who's not putting themselves out front and center. Yeah, sure, there's people like Ken Kratz that love the attention, and I would say even to a degree, Andy Colburn's the kind of guy that likes to be, out front and center. He likes to be talked about. He likes to be thought of highly, but he's one of those persons that I think kind of likes being in the limelight. But you got to look at the other side as far as who are the people that are really shady and dark, and what kind of people in a case like this, are just trying to be in the background, kind of hiding behind, the curtain, in a dark room. Who doesn't want to be, seen out front? And like you just said, a guy like Tom Kasork was that kind of guy. in this particular case, and there's probably a couple others if I sat back and thought about it a little bit more. I think Jason Jost would be another person like that, possibly.
Yeah.
And certainly Mike Bushman,
Bushman, right.
as well.
Best friends with Chris Eric, wasn't he? Or
What's
good
that?
friends?
Yes, that's true.
Yeah, Bushman's always been fishy to me too. Drew Ertl over to dig up a dead tree stump on the west, over by the quarry, I guess. And stuff.
And again, it just boils down to a fairness issue. Why is a guy who helped throw the handcuffs on Steve Avery back in 1985?
Right.
For the Penny Bernstein sexual assault on Lake Michigan, over on the shoreline there, why is he, coming out of retirement? Who calls him up and says, "Hey, Mike, we could use you today"? And why are they even making that phone call?
Right.
Knowing that he's already got baggage and ties to Steve Avery, but he's not even working anymore.
Yeah,
so,
he's retired MCSD. So it's like, MCSD is not supposed to be here, but hey, let's even call their retired employees out. Come on, let's.
Yeah, I always thought that as much as people, and certainly, as we all know, Tuesday, November 8th, 2005 is one of the most pivotal, it's the most pivotal day in the case as far as the evidence trove is concerned.
Right.
That's when Jim Link and Andy Colburn, they're just sweating bullets, and they're working so hard, and they're shaking that desk with all their might, and that spare key just shoots out at that strange angle, and why didn't I take physics in high school? I would have. We all know how it would have happened if I would have just taken the physics class, but I'm just being sarcastic, obviously.
Right.
I just want to make sure people know that here, but yeah, I mean, I'll be a little more serious here, but yeah, we have the key being found. Then we have the license plates being found that morning as well. Yeah. The crumpled up license plates. They turn up in the station wagon that's already got its windows busted out. And then the third thing was, with Jason Jost, finding, having that hunch, to go. I better go look around by the
fire pit,
on the edge of Stevens burn pit. And,
the big bad dog is gone now, right? We can go look over there now, right? Yeah, ridiculous.
Right. Yeah. So obviously, those three events right there pretty much helped facilitate what was going to happen the next day, which was getting the arrest warrant for Stephen, on November 9th. But for me, the most interesting day to study, and I hope I did a good job with it in the book. I did the best I could with what I had to work with. But I was always fascinated with, the day that people really forget and really don't focus in on, with the case. Because I understand why they didn't. Because, November 8th, with the key and everything else being found, that's a huge day. And November 9th, Steve gets arrested. And Saturday is the day that, Pam finds, where God tells her where to go. And, and she does what God tells her to do. And then, and then she finds, the vehicle back on the back of the property. But from my standpoint, that Monday is such an interesting day because there's so much activity going on. And yet, if you really just read what was in the police reports, you would think of it as basically a nothing day. Nothing was found that day.
Right.
We blocked off Cuffs Road and we're down there from 10:30 a.m. Until about 5 or 6 p.m. that night. When Ertl and his crew finally finish up, but yet Ertl and his crew aren't called out there till the middle of the afternoon. And then you read John Diedering's reports, and they're like a paragraph long, if memory serves, maybe a bit shorter than that, but it's basically like, we checked this out. It's very suspicious, but there's nothing here. Nothing to look for, nothing to see. And again, who are the first? I'm more interested in who who were the first guys on the scene that day, and it's, I think it's Andy, Jim, Link, Dietering, and Uyghur's kind of in on the phone calls. I don't know if Mark was actually at the scene, but he's kind of, kind of playing general, that brigadier general that morning as far as kind of which troops to assign, to that location, and then you get Mike Bushman, out there. So you have Mike Bushman playing that huge role with the, with the suspicious discovery that's made off of Cuss Road there, in the grassy area over there. But then you also have the fact that he's leading one of those teams, the one that decides, let's go search, the northern end, kind of out by Steve's property, and it's his team that decides, hey, let's look inside this burn barrel, and lo and behold, that's where all the, the remnants of the phone are,
Right.
And here's the thing that's really interesting about that is that we all know that there's photographs, of I think Remaker and Link, on Sunday afternoon, so 2 days earlier, on the 6th, where you could see this photo of them with that blue tarp, where they're kind of putting it over the burn barrels. Right? And if memory serves, I think those were all the burn barrels from Brendan's property. But I'm thinking to myself, why would you be confiscating only Brendan's, Barb Yonda's burn barrels? When Steve Avery's your prime suspect at that point in time. Why would you decide to leave Steve Avery's burn barrel behind? But more importantly, just not even look inside of it. So again, why do you get to Monday, when Mike Bushman and his team, his all-Manitowoc County team, is assigned to kind of, hang out in that in that area around by Stephen Avery's property, and then they decide, we're gonna look inside his burn barrel, and then we're gonna realize that there's got to be something hiding underneath, the wheel well that's in there. So we're just gonna pull the wheel well out, and lo and behold, we're gonna find all the remnants, from a burned out cell phone that's in there. So again, that's all going on Monday. November 7th, and again, who drops in for one day only in the case, and then who just kind of evaporates, like a ghost or a specter, and that's our friend Mike Bushman.
Pinch planner, anyway.
Yeah,
like a pinch hitter, anyway.
yeah. I mean, it's like I said, it's really interesting, and like I said, he's a table setter, whatever you want to call him. But I just really would. I mean, as much as there's always, I'm sure we all have our own little, thing about the case that we're dying to know what really happened. I mean, for a lot of people, I think that would be known definitively. Where was Andy? What was the exact time that he found Teresa's vehicle? What was, if you could put yourself in his shoes, where was it? What was the time? And how did it go down? But I think, like I said, for me, I would actually be interested in kind of, being in Mike Bushman's shoes as far as, how does it happen where he gets a phone call or he's tapped, and told, hey, we need you to come out to the Steve Avery, the Avery salvage yard, and this is what you're going to do, or these are the things that we need you to do. I would really love to know, how that conversation went down, who it was with, and just basically what he was told to do, or, and maybe it was just, maybe it's just something along the lines of, we need to get this bastard, and we need to get him in jail, and now I've had a number of people told me that when I was working on this case. They're like, John, it's probably didn't, if Link and Colburn were involved in planting the evidence and, and the key, people have told me, they're like, it wouldn't have happened in a way that somebody like Ken Peterson would say, you plant this, it would be more along the lines of, I don't give a shit, what you have to do to get this SOP, get it done. And that's the thing people always kind of, hung up on, and people talk so much on the other side about, well, you just couldn't have 20 people in a conspiracy, it would be too big. Well, Yeah, that's true. But you wouldn't have professional law enforcement people having stupid conversations like that either. Nobody would be telling, an Andy Colburn or a Jim Link or somebody else for that matter.
Right.
You plant this and you plant this and I'll plant that. No, it's just kind of understood. It's like you don't say anything and we won't ask any tough questions. That's how normally these kinds of
Right.
conspiracies or evidence planning schemes happen. So.
Right. Someone else asked about, do you think if MaM hadn't been released, do you think all this attention would have, do you think there would have been this much attention on this case without MaM?
No. I think that Mickey murder, was very instrumental, and that it's the reason why we're having this conversation tonight, and why, there's been so much interest, in wrongful conviction cases. It really played a huge role. It was kind of a seed, that sprouted the flower, so to speak, as far as bringing so many people around the world together.
Yeah.
To try to realize that that there's so many wrongful conviction cases out there that are just tragic on so many levels that just don't get the attention and the publicity that they need to in order to really kind of force everybody to step back and assess and reevaluate the quality of our criminal justice system.
But I would say, fortunately, there are some really good ones getting made right now. There are some really well done documentaries, like The Staircase, like West of Memphis, and even the Central Park 5 one. That one's just I've watched that one. These really, really brilliant documentaries are starting to get made, so I think that's going to help the situation. I think.
Yeah, well, it won't hurt. So, and I would throw one more in there too. Just I thought the one that was where John Grisham was based on
Innocent
Man out of Oklahoma, Oklahoma.
Yeah.
But I thought that was a real good one. And although it's not a wrongful conviction case, the Keepers, with the story about that sister, Mary Catherine, I think was her name, suspect, or however you say that, but the one out of Baltimore,
I know which one you're talking about. Right.
Yeah, one.
The Keepers, you guys know I've done a video about that, right? So yeah, absolutely, that one's another one. Oh my God.
Right.
That one's. I mean, that one there. What are we supposed to think when we can't even trust priests? You know what I mean? I mean, think about the amount of trust that people have in their priests. You know what I mean? And to see something like what happened in the Keepers, but not to get too far off point, obviously. But yeah, that one's another good one though. So, certainly. Somebody else was curious. How difficult was it for you to look up historical information when you were researching Wrecking Crew and writing it?
Well, the one advantage I had was that I had, did a lot of reporting, and I had cultivated a lot of sources, at least with the facts about the Ricky Hochstetler case. So I was very fortunate from that standpoint that I had tracked down hundreds of documents when I was a reporter, with the Post-Crescent, so that was fortunate. I think one area that I kind of, which is really, there's no mention of it in the book, and I don't know if it would have worked in the book, to be honest with you. Yeah. I know some people at least have studied it a little bit, but I had at one point in time tried to research that other missing persons case out of Manitowoc County, the woman that disappeared in 1988 or so.
Yeah.
And they at one point in time dug up a farm. I think the guy's name, was Neuser, Neuser, but it was a farm property. Their body's never been found to this day, and there's very, very little publicity about it. And I was interested, and I think I did a freedom of information request for information on the case, and the sheriff's office, shot me down. And it was at that point in time where I'm trying to figure out, what's a good use of my resources.
Right.
So I backed off, and then, I figured, well, I'll pursue the Ricky Hochstetler case. It was kind of like I came to this fork in the road, and it's like, what should I do? So I went after Ricky Hochstetler, and I kind of pushed that case to the side because, and I know I made a phone call or two trying to track down like a family member or two, and I was unsuccessful with that, even though I had a couple leads. So it was one of those things. I had nobody in the community really was pushing, trying to get justice for this woman, trying to find out what happened to her, who killed her. And I was actually interested from the standpoint of thinking, well, you know what, if you believe the Manitowoc County Sheriff's Office version of events, then they just were really so interested in bringing justice to Teresa and her family. And my attitude was, okay, if that's really true, then why aren't you working your asses off then trying to find, this other missing, woman, from your own community, that lived in Manitowoc, in the Manitowoc County area, and she hasn't been found either, which also means that there's a killer, that's out there, that's on the loose, so I saw these two cases as being hypocrisies as far as, well, if you really are interested in justice and, and you're proud of everything you did for Teresa's family, then why aren't you doing anything for this woman that, this mother that disappeared in
I totally agree.
88. So,
I totally
but
agree.
It was,
I think the Ricky Hochstetler case. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah.
Well, I think the Ricky Hochstetler case. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Okay, I was just gonna say, if people are interested, that would be a case to try to, do additional research on because, like I said, there's a killer that's still on a loose to be. This woman's body's never been found. And it's 31 years now, I think, since she disappeared. I think it was 1988. So.
Right. And the thing I was going to say is the Ricky Hochstetler case, as you brought that up, I had meant to talk about that. And for those of you who don't know, Ricky Hochstetler was a kid in Manitowoc who was run down in the middle of the night, in the early morning hours, by what is suspected to be a drunk driver. Basically, Manitowoc County officers basically dropped the ball, and they also lied to Ricky's mother about things they said they had done that they hadn't done, and she ended up finding out about it. And for me, the Ricky Hochstetler case is a very, very clear illustration of why we can't trust them when they try to wrap themselves up in the hall box and say they're doing what's good for the hall box and blah blah blah. I can't believe that, and the reason why is because I've seen what they've done to Ricky's mom, and other things like that. So I'm glad you brought up Ricky.
Yeah, I mean, and I'll be honest. I mean, I really don't believe that Rob Herman really cares about the Hallbach family. I really believe that. I mean, and I'll go out and say that on a show like yours tonight to kind of get some people interested in talking about that. But I really believe that. I think that guy is a total phony, and that's based on other people that worked with him at the sheriff's office and knew him, in his younger days. So I don't think he's sheriff anymore now, but the guy was a total phony, and and you could he almost looked like he was reading, from a script, reading talking points as far as, talking about Teresa, and her family. So that's, you could just tell that if you study him and watch any time that he talks about Teresa, or, wanting to bring justice to the family, it almost looks like he's reading it from, from either a script or he's got a, message board, which I'm sure he did, but it was just, that's the way, it doesn't come off as genuine, is what I'm trying to say to people here tonight. When somebody's genuine and when they're sincere, and he just sounds like he's just repeating the talking points that some other public relations people or other police officers, had gotten together and did a powwow and said, these are the things we're going to say, and these are the things we're going to repeat.
Get our story straight, right? Right. So I know we're at the end of the 30 minutes. Would you answer one more question for us?
Yes, I can do that for you then.
All right. One more question is some people are curious, what project are you working on currently?
The one I'm working on right now is it involves a fellow that he's still in prison in Illinois, and this is not a wrongful conviction case. Kind of the opposite, but it involves a fellow that was a serial killer in Illinois, and his name was Milton Johnson. And if you look it up, you'll find a little bit, but there's not an incredible amount of information about his case because it happened. Well, I should say most of his crimes that he committed were in the early 1980s. He actually was sentenced to death here in Illinois for several of these murders. But in Illinois, about 15 years ago, completely got rid of the death penalty. So his sentence got commuted. He's still in prison to this day. But it's a really creepy. It'll probably be the scariest book. I was telling somebody that today. It'll probably be the scariest book that I've ever read, just because these crimes, some of these crimes that happened, I mean, these things are just going to scare the crap out of you and everybody else. It's just, they were middle of the night kinds of crimes, that you couldn't even, it would be like a Friday the 13th kind of movie scenario as far as how some of these crimes, happen. So it's, but it's kind of the opposite. Like I said, this is probably going to be a book that gives props to some real good work, by a police department or two, here in Illinois, and the prosecution, did some fabulous work. But this guy is really an unusual duck. So he actually served as his own criminal defense attorney at one of his murder trials. They had two separate murder trials for him. He was convicted of one murder, and then they tried him for a quadruple murder that he had also committed, and then they held off on charging him for a number of other crimes just because, they prosecuted him for the best ones that they thought they could get a conviction on. So they got him convicted of 5 murders and got him sentenced to death for that. And nobody was thinking, back in 1985 that, oh, by the way, 18 years from now, some governors, nobody's going to be thinking that the guy's still going to be alive in 18 years, and then B, that his death penalty is going to be overturned. So,
interesting, very interesting. Well, that's cool. Look forward to that, everybody. That's what he's currently working on. So that's awesome. Thank you for being here. And if I could ask you to give a shout out to the Wrecking Crew.
No, thanks. I appreciate you mentioned the book and the good feedback that you've gotten and heard from people. And like I said, for people that haven't had a chance to digest it yet, I would encourage you, to give it consideration. I tried my best to kind of put together the case from the standpoint of Kathleen Zellner, as far as she's brand new on the case, Making Murder just come out, and here's basically, everything that's kind of going through her mind, and I tried my best to kind of lay it out, sequentially as far as who are all these world-class, world-renowned all-stars that she brings into the case, and what are they contributing, to the case. Right. And she's trying to put together the very best case that she can, knowing what she's going up against as far as the state of Wisconsin that doesn't want to see her at all, that doesn't want to talk about Steve Avery, and just wishes this whole thing would go away. So, again, my publisher is Wild Blue Press out of Denver, Colorado, and again, the book is Wrecking Crew. You can get it, on Kindle, which is what most people do. Paperback sales have been very strong, and then also we have a very good audiobook version that was narrated by Kevin Pierce, who's a phenomenal audiobook narrator out of Florida. And he's done hundreds, I think, of true crime books. He's just really good at
very pleasant to listen to. I actually have it on Alexa. Oops, I mentioned her.
Awesome.
So
awesome.
Anyway, so yes, thank you for being here, and that it was a pleasure talking with you.
Yeah, we'll do it again sometime.
Absolutely.
And like I said, just want to thank everybody for tuning in this weekend, and like I said, hopefully sometime in the near future, and I don't know when it is either, but just hopefully, we'll have some major developments on the case, that we can get together again and talk about that. Okay.
Sure, absolutely. Well, it was a pleasure, and I do look forward to the next time. So, thank you for being here.
All right. You got it. All right. Well, thanks very much. You have a great weekend now. Okay?
You too. You too. All right. So that was John Ferak, folks. That was great talking to him. Very interesting. And then he even brought up Ricky Hochstetler, which was great because those of you who don't know about the Ricky Hochstetler case, that one is another one. It's like I said, when you hear these guys telling you BS, like, BS stories like that they care about the hall box. It's out of concern for the hall box. It's out of concern for the victims. Yeah, well, they didn't show anything anywhere near that level of concern for the hall box and Deb, Ricky's mom. So it was, pretty sad, really. So anyway.